Welcome back to Breaking Down Storage Tech. Today we're breaking down a storage input system by Philgoodinator. Now this is a fully hopper locked system with no toggle states that uses a zero ticking to break the box. So let's get straight into it. So this system, just as a like something to say before, is it has two main inputs. So you have this, or you could say three main inputs actually. You have this input right here where you input shulker boxes that would go into your main storage to be sorted appropriately. Then you have a middle box for any loose items like the piston right here. And then you have a bulk right here, which will go directly to your bulk system. And you can see this as it gives two different outputs in the end, one to go into your main storage system and one to go into your bulk. And this is because, like in systems like that, actually not that system, but other bulk systems, you have, well yeah, like this one as well. Here's a good example. That you have box sorters here, and you would be able to, with this system, hook up the bulk input to just go straight directly into the bulk box sorters instead of having to unload it and then reload all the boxes, which makes it really convenient. Now, this top note block right here is to break this box and put it into the mix chest, and then this bottom note block right here is to run the system and clear out the chest. So any items I put in here will not happen or not get pulled out because the system is naturally hopper locked, and so you will have to press this button to run the system. And you can also take an output from this note block to also run your unloading array and all of that good stuff. Now, you may wonder, why is this system so beefy? And the reason is because you could theoretically just have two input chests and then a simple switch to send them out, but that assumes that you aren't ever going to make a single mistake that runs your system into whatever storage you want. And this system right here basically makes it idiot proof. So this main chest right here checks that everything is a box that you put into it, and then that sends it out and sends all the boxes, so you can send it to an unloading array. And then all the bulk systems go through first a box check to make sure it is a box, and if it is a box, it makes sure that it's full, so that way if it is a full box, or only your bulk gets full boxes. And if any random items do get into these chests, they go down into the heart of the system, if I can find it, right here, into this right here where there is a shulker box loader that runs at 2 times hopper speed, so that way even if you fill both of these chests with random items, it will go into your simple hopper or box loader. Now you could argue, why have this box right here if everything's going to get sent to a box loader, but it just makes it easier on the system if you put everything in boxes and it doesn't have to deal with loading a box and all that stuff. So let's get straight into it. Let's start with the box right here. So basically you can input whatever items you want. It doesn't really matter how you do it, because it's just supposed to be, I just came back from something, let me dump all my items in here and then I can send it. So what happens is you click this note block right here. This note block will then power both of these note blocks right here through the piston. And what will happen then is it will power both of these sticky pistons right here. Now, one thing to note is the fact that when this note block is powered, it also powers this sticky piston right here, and because it has a powered piston above it that's losing power, it zero ticks all of these pistons, this piston, this piston, this piston, and all of these pistons. So that basically means that the extension will take 0 ticks to execute. There will be no animation. It'll just be, okay, 1 second I'm not extended, the next tick it will be fully extended. This means that the box right in here will get pushed into the composter that's right there. If I fly in, you can see there's a little space here for the box, and then that will be able to run down into the hopper that we have here. Now, the reason we also push this note block above it is to make sure that the shulker box doesn't fly out anywhere, so that way it stays in the composter. Now, what happens is this sticky piston moves this slime block right here, and what happens then is that this piston right here will no longer be powered because there's no redstone connecting it, as well as this this piston right here being powered, because since this slime block is here, this redstone will cut out its line, so that it will power this block as well as the slime block that'll be right here. So it'll power this piston and this piston, which will cause power to also go to this piston to reset the entire system, but it will also update this observer line. Now, just before that, we also have a power going to this observer to power this block, to power this repeater right here. So once it pushes everything, and it's because it zero ticks, the piston retracts to back where it was. This line powers both of the pistons and keeps them extended to retract them, so that way everything retracts as normal, as you can see right here. Now, what happens then is this line, or this observer, will also power this sticky piston, which extends this sticky piston to bring this detector rail, right here. So it moves this redstone wire to no longer power any of this stuff and no longer power this block, so it just stays as a line. And at the same time, there's this line right here, which powers these two repeaters right here after a certain amount of time, which will send a observer update and to this observer, because this redstone repeater becomes powered. Now when this becomes powered, it updates this observer, which powers this block to power this note block, and because there is no redstone torch on here, it can actually be updated, which will run these two observers right here, which will extend this block or send power to this note block, as well as power this sticky piston. By powering this sticky piston, it moves the composter right here to where this air block is, which will change or remove the signal going into this comparator, so it will no longer be powering this redstone wire right here. This unlocks this hopper and this hopper, but we only really care about this hopper being unlocked. Actually, it doesn't even power this hopper. This hopper gets powered by this redstone repeater there. So basically it only unpowers this hopper, which allows the box that's inside the composter to go down into this dropper right here. Now, what also happens is this composter moves here and updates this white stained glass pane because it can attach to the composter. This will update this observer right here to power this block, as well as updating this observer to power this dropper right here. So what happens is the shulker box that was in this composter, because it got zero ticked, will go down into this hopper and into this dropper, which then gets powered and shot up into the mixed box. Now, what also happens is it also powers this block right here, which powers this iron trap door. By powering this iron trap door, you update this observer here to power this power rail right here, which powers this observer as well as this observer because it's also watching this. And this is for the shulker line, these signals right here. And you can see right here you have a shulker line going out across all these droppers. And what basically happens is these observers power, so it shoots one from this dropper into this dropper. Actually, not from this dropper. Actually, yeah, I think from this dropper into this dropper into here, here, all the way into here. And it's kind of hard to see, but there is a dropper right here, and which will also get powered. And then this up here will get powered from power coming to this block from this observer right here, which watches the piston, which I can't get a good angle of, but there's another sticky piston under here, and that powers this block, which will power the repeater, powering this dropper, and powering this final dispenser right here to power and shoot this another box right here. Now, how this system works, or the restocks, is basically this line has a comparator readout, so it basically freezes the entire system, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what also happens is this hopper, or when this gets fired, this will no longer have any items, so it'll unpower this comparator right here, which will no longer power this block, which will no longer be powering this redstone wire, so it'll power no longer lock this hopper, so it'll allow one item to go into here and one shulker box to be taken out from the chest, and then it will relock because the comparator now has an input, or it has an item in it. And now we'll see that if I to slow the game down, so make it to a better angle, and you can see that it's zero ticked. You can see all the signals running. You can see the comparator moving back, the system relocking, and yeah. And now we have a fresh clean box, and now we have a item in the mix box, and now I have this box as well that we'll put in here. So there is quite a few things to go over. The first of which is this main sorter right here. What happens when you press this line right here is to run the system, and from there what happens is it updates this observer right here, which has a observer coming out right here. You can see in my thing at the top of my screen it says observer. It's kind of hard to get an angle of it, but just know that it outputs to this direction. It's watching the previous observer and outputting in this direction, which is not too important, but the main thing is that there's this observer which we can see from the top right here, watching that observer under this repeater, and then it will run this observer line all the way here until it powers this iron trapdoor right here, which causes an update to this observer because this deep slate tile wall no longer has a iron trapdoor above it. And so it'll power this block through the system, and this is where the failsafe system comes in, because if this piston is not here keeping this block there, no signal will run through to these powered rails. But because there is a block here, the power goes to these powered rails and continues down and updates these two observers right here. Now, these two observers do quite a few things, but the main thing is that both of them eventually come down to this line right here and power these two blocks. By powering these two blocks, it powers this pulse extender right here, and this is the main control of the hopper system, or the hopper locking. So as long as there's a pulse in this system and there's power in this system, the entire system is unlocked, and when it runs out, the entire system relocks. Now, there is output to this power or target block, and we're going to talk about all that in a second because that has more to do with hopper locking. But there's also this line right here, actually. Yes, sorry. Because this comparator powers this jack-o'-lantern, I believe it will also power this note block right here. Because it powers this note block, it powers this observer line to power this observer line to power this block right here, which will extend this piston to push the block, if it is right here, to push it that way and make sure it's there. This powered rail is powered because this block is right here, which is taking comparator power from this comparator, which takes output from this composter. This keeps this line on. And what happens is this will get moved, this block will get moved to right here when the system is running and actually processing items. So when the system relocks, it will update and shove everything over here to this block right here. Or move the block to right here, allowing the system to relock. Now, this target block power right here is quite important, and it runs this line right here. So by powering this, or when the system is on, this redstone torch will be off on powering this redstone repeater. So that unlocks these two droppers right here. So it will unlock this hopper. What will also happen is it will unpower this redstone wire, which will unpower these redstone lines right here, which allow this redstone torch to power. Powering of this piston, which will move this sticky piston up, unpowering of this redstone comparator, unlocking these two hoppers here. And what will also happen is this redstone torch will no longer be powering this redstone wire right here, so this hopper will unlock, no longer be powering of this line or these two dusts because of the line going through these blocks. So these two hoppers unlock, as well as this hopper getting powered through this white concrete. These two redstone torches will turn on, which will turn this redstone torch off and this redstone torch off. So it unlocks this hopper and this hopper, the direct input lines. So, and this redstone torch doesn't actually power. The reason we have this redstone torch here is to keep this note block powered. So that way when it's, when all the signals are going off, it doesn't cause a bunch of misfiring with these droppers and dispensers to power this. Because we only want to read the comparator out, or the observer output, for when we change the instrument by left clicking or right clicking it. And that's how the system unlocks. Now, once the system unlocks, this is where the main and bulk lines actually become important. So now that this hopper is unlocked, any chests or any shulker boxes in this line right here will run down into this dropper right here, and this dropper will cause this comparator, because they now have items, cause this comparator to power, which will unpower this redstone torch, which will update this note block. This causes this clock to start running, as you can see, because this observer will update or realize that there's an update here because it's no longer powered. So it will power this line right here, powering this, which also powers this dropper right here, which causes this line to also start running, which will power this block and continue the loop. This signal is hijacked as well to power this line right here, observer line, to power this block and power this line right here, this repeater right here, which will cause an observer update to power this line, which gets taken by this observer to power this block, to power this line right here, to power this note block right here, which gets read by this observer and goes all the way down to keep the timer alive. So this pulse extender is very short, so if I run it without any systems in it or any boxes, so nothing gets processed, you see it's it's actually a decent amount of time, but the entire system eventually locks out. Now, what happens is when there's a system or items going through and this stuff is actually being processed, it keeps this timer alive, or the pulse extender alive, by sending power to this observer through this bunch of weird redstone stuff, or actually through this observer powering this block. And this is done so that the system doesn't stop halfway through. Now, this is where the is box check happens. So basically, it will try to shoot the boxes that we have, like these boxes, into another box. And obviously, you can't put a shulker box inside another box. So what'll happen is that that no item or the boxes won't be able to get shot into this shulker box. So they basically travel down into here, where they go into this dropper right here, where they get powered from this system again, continue down into here, and this is where this signal comes in, because we are also hijacking this, and this also runs on a clock, because this note block is getting powered periodically through this clock, and this powers these last three dispensers, or no, not sorry, these droppers coming from this observer, which gets red or powers this line right here. And it also reads the input from this line to power this block and power this note block to run these two observers right here to power these last two. And this basically, as you can see right here, shoots out the items into this line right here, and they continue down all the way through and go out the main line. Now, you may wonder what happens when it isn't a box, or it isn't a box. So basically, the items will get shot down into the shulker box and run down into this hopper right here, because it's now unlocked, because this redstone power isn't powered. Basically, because this comparator is right here, it will power this block and power this piston right here, so it shoves this white concrete right here like we were talking about earlier. This stops the power from this comparator coming down to this rail right here and updates both of these observers. This observer right here we've talked about previously. What happens is it runs this line right here to power this line all the way up and keep this line off so the system can run. Now, what also happens is this observer gets updated, which has quite a few signals, but the main one being its readout to this observer to power this dropper right here, as well as power this dropper right here. And this basically shoots the items into this white shulker box as long as, and with the delay that there is. So if there's one item, it'll shoot and power once and shoot into here. So breaking down actually where this shulker box, or how this shulker box gets broken and replaced. So it actually all stems from power coming to this target block right here. And it doesn't actually power the piston directly through this. What happens is it powers this line right here, which powers this block and powers this note block. Same happens for the bulk line right here, because it'll eventually come to this comparator right here and power this note block as well. Both of these powers cause this piston to flick on or off, which updates this observer right here, causing power to this block. And from this block right here, it'll update this redstone repeater with a specific timing, which will update this observer powering this rail line, updating this observer to go and power this note block through it all. And by powering this note block, what it does is, first of all, it powers this piston right here to break the blocks, but it also updates this dispenser right here, or if I can find a better angle, here. So you can see right here that there's a dispenser right here with all the shulker boxes. This comes from the shulker line that we talked about previously, where it has the shulker line, and this is where the shulker line splits. So you have this line right here where we previously talked about, and here there is an output coming to this hopper right here, which fills this dispenser, as well as going up to put a box right here. Now, so that's how the box replaces, and it also has a fullness check. So basically, if the system does back up, it powers this line right here. And if the system starts to back up, but that is just a just-in-case scenario. But it also does get powered when this whole system activates. So that basically is the mix box input, and we can actually break this down. So I have two chests right here, and I'll slow the game down right here. Ooh, actually, this is going to be a bit weird. You can see the whole system running. You can see the clock start up, and we'll see this comparator fire once the items make its way in. Yep. Then this clock will start to run, and then the system will start running itself. And you can see there's no filled items, and you can see that the clock updated once they got a signal, and you can see the clock continuously going. And yeah, so that's pretty much the whole system for the mixed boxes. Did I reset? Ooh, that's very fast. So, and then we get our two boxes right here as we wanted before. Now it comes to the bulk side. This uses pretty much the same input as before, except a little bit different. What happens is this line, when we put something here and run the system, it'll unlock this hopper right here, allowing the items to come into this dropper. When they come into this dropper, it will power this comparator, unpowering this redstone torch, so it will unpower this note block. It does use the same clock system, but this time it's actually slightly different because it uses a delay on the repeater. This is because we have two checks to run. We have the is box chest with this shulker box right here, and we have a is full box check to make sure that it is a proper bulk box, as you can see. And so it has to run slightly below, but this is still 8 game ticks fully hopper or running at hopper speed, but we just have to cap the input a little bit or slow down the clock so we don't overflow the system. Now this clock will be running and powering this repeater, which will power this observer right here, which will do the same as we talked about before, where it runs the whole system to keep this pulse alive. But now what we do is power this line right here, and this redstone wire won't be powered because the system will be unlocked, but this system will be running, and we shoot and do the same thing as before with the dropper, shooting the items into the shulker box. Now if they are an item, they continue down, do the exact same thing with the exact same signal, with the comparator reading out to power the system, and shoot them into the shulker box, and the shulker box breaks because it's the same shulker box. One thing to note about the shulker box is it's broken every time the system shuts off, and this is through these signals with the hopper locking, so that way you don't have to wait for the box to fully fill up once the system is being run, so that way you don't have like any weird items being stuck in here until the box is full, because that could be really awkward. No, every time the system locks, it or relocks and finishes, it will shove the shulker box out. Now, what happens also is, where was I? Okay, yes. Now, if it isn't a box, or yeah, if it is a box, what will happen is it'll get pulled down into this hopper right here and shot into this observer or dropper right here. And this is where the signal from this observer comes to power this repeater, which also powers this line right here. But the main thing is it powers this dropper and then this dropper or dispenser to place the box. Now, this also immediately breaks it and powers this observer right here to power this block, to power the piston to break it. But what we do here is we take a comparator output from the box, and this is in compare mode with this signal strength of 15. And if you recall, a comparator outputs a signal when it's in compare mode if the signal it's getting from the back is equal to or greater than the signal to the left. So only when the signal strength of 15 will this update. Now, if this does update, what will happen is this line will power right here, and it will power this line all the way here, powering these two observers right here, which will lock this bottom hopper as well as this top hopper, or no, power this dropper, and shoot the shulker box out into the bulk line right here. But if it isn't a line, this doesn't power at all, so this dropper right here never powers, so the box continues all the way down into this dropper right here, where it goes into this dropper because of this line being powered, but coming from all the way earlier on when this main line fires, it also powers this repeater and continues all the way down, and it fires this line right here, powering this dropper to shoot the item into this soul sand that gets shot up into this block right here and continues down the main line. And that is the whole system. Now, there is a few weird, or the main thing of the failsafe is if there's no shulker boxes in the system. This will turn off this comparator, which will turn on this repeater and turn off this line and move this block right here, as well as keep this sticky piston powered. So none of the box breaking or anything or on any of the systems actually will run. It'll just kind of be in this weird. Now, running the system with the bulk box, you can see right here, it will go place it and break it super fast, shoot it out the bulk line, as we can see right here. It's kind of hard to see, but it came out the bulk line just because it's not hooked up to anything. It comes out in the same output and random item movement and stuff like that. But yeah, overall a really cool system with a lot of logic. But I am particularly quite a fan of this, especially the input. The input, I think, is just so clean in my opinion. I also like the idea that I can like this and then take out the items if I change my mind, or like Like, I really like the idea of just going here and, I don't know, taking some blocks right here. Just came back from an adventure or whatever. Go right here. I love the idea of being able to go bada bing, bada boom. Now, this is all my unstackables, sorry, not box items, and then I can go here, dump all my stuff, and then be like, oh wait, is any of these bulks? Oh wait, this is a bulk box right here. And then I just click the system right here. And I didn't break the middle box, but I would break the whole system. And you can see right here, everything gets sorted super, super fast. It gets sorted by my system, and you have the system right here. And then I forgot to press this, but you get the idea of how quickly you can just clear your inventory and get items and boxes into your system to be unloaded and sorted. So I think this is one of the best inputs for any system, so fair play to Philgoodinator. But yeah, thank you for watching.